everybody, Mike McWilliams upstairs to the right, music. Before we get started with today's show, just a little reminder, if you haven't subscribed with me yet and you like what you're seeing on this program, please take the time to hit that subscribe button. If we can get to 1,000 subscribers on this program, I guarantee you it's only going to get better. I can invest more into these shows and really do a lot more of the stuff that you guys seem to be digging, and I do enjoy giving it to you. I dig giving it to you. So hit that subscribe button. It would really help out. Thank you very much. All right. So getting on to the meat and potatoes of today's show. Today we are going to talk about these two guitars. We have the Greco EG450, 1977 model. We have the 2020, I believe this one is 2020 model, of the Epiphone Les Paul 1959. Both of them are excellent guitars. Today we are going to feature talking about the pickups in these guitars. Specifically, the pickups in this guitar are Super 70s, U1000s, otherwise more commonly known as Super 70s, and the pickups in this guitar are Gibson Burstbucker 2 and 3. Yeah, I finally said that right after 20 shows. I always say Burst Booker or something weird. I finally pronounced it right. I'm so happy. All right. So anyway, we're going to talk about that today. But first off, let's get into this Epiphone a little bit. So as you saw from the last show, I took the time to take it to a luthier and have some professional work done on it. And a lot of people seem to, in the comments section of the last show, seem to enjoy the work that was done. And I appreciate you watching that. But one of the questions that came up was, why do it? Is it worth it? Why do something like that to a guitar like this? So let me start out by saying that I bought this guitar mid to late January of this year. And I took 6 months of just playing it here, running it through my Laney here, my favorite amp, and just trying it out, seeing what I thought, seeing what was good, what was bad about it. And that's something that I preach on this channel. The motto of this channel is to help you find your tone. And one of the things that I want you to do in order to help you find your tone, one of the models of this channel, is to help you find a tone. It's really to educate you about what you should do when you first get a guitar and the steps that you can go as you progress as a guitar player or whatever you're doing with it. If you're a young guy and you're starting out, or whether you're an old guy like me, just giving a little bit of advice. And one of the things that I do advise is that you buy a guitar and live with it for a while. So I lived with this for 6 months, and I came to the conclusion that it needed some fretwork. These Epiphones come with no fret nibs here on the frets, like you would get on a Gibson. And so I don't mind. That's not a deal breaker for me by any means. But here on this side, it needed to just have those fret ends buttered out a little bit, so it made it a little bit more of a comfortable playing experience. And also here between the 3rd and 4th fret, and down here between the 13th and 14th, there was a little bit of a high fret issue there. Now, it's the funny thing is I took it to Fern and I said, well, I think you got high frets here and here. And he says, nah, it's probably all right. And as you saw in the video, I was correct. And why was that? It's because I lived with the guitar for 6 months. I guess I knew its ins and outs. I knew what it needed, what it lacked, its pros and cons. I knew this guitar very intimately after 6 months. Now, when it came to the recapping and putting new pots on this thing, new pots and caps, that was an interesting thing to me, but it's not really the first time for me. So in the past, putting on new pots and caps are something that I did a lot. As a matter of fact, I have here one of my RS Guitar Works kits. This is a 50s wiring kit that they produce that has everything already done. The harness is already done. You just got to drop it in and wire, solder. These kits are pretty good, but they're not cheap. And so, you know, it's not something that if you don't, I didn't do it in every one of my Gibsons. I did do it in 2 of them. My Les Paul Classic, my 93 Les Paul Classic, was it a 96? And yeah, and the 93. So the 93 and the 96 Les Paul Classics, they both got RS Guitar Works put in. They got rewired and recapped and new pots put in. So that's not something that you really have to do necessarily. It ended up costing me about a €200 expense to have that done. And Fern was kind enough to do that work for me at what I consider to be a very good price because in the case of this guitar, I think it's something that I personally would have eventually have done. Now, do I think that that's something that this guitar needs out of the box? No, not at all. To be frank with you, I'm not trying to sell you on either one of these guitars today. Actually, I'm trying to sell you on both. And we'll get to why at the end of the show. But starting out with this one right here, out of the box, these Epiphone 59s are fantastic guitars. If you are a beginner, if you are an advanced player, if you're a studio musician, wherever you are, it would not be a bad thing to have one of these in your arsenal. If you're starting out, especially if this is the one guitar that you have, if I had a guitar like this when I was starting out, I guarantee you I would be probably the same guitar player that I am today, but I sure could say that I learned on a really great guitar. And so this guitar is really that kind of special. You know, really very good fit and finish on this. The burst bucker 2 and 3 on this are excellent. We'll talk more about the pros and cons on these later, but for the most part, these are excellent pickups. In 2002, the Gibson Custom Shop introduced these in their R9s, the burst bucker 2 and 3. And so these are high top shelf pickups. These are not just any old pickups. So I don't feel the need to change these, to be frank with you, at this moment. I'm going to give you a spoiler on that. I don't see the need to change anything else on this guitar. Now, I did change the tailpiece. I swapped out the Epiphone tailpiece and I in for this vintage 82 Les Paul Standard German-made tailpiece because it's a lighter tailpiece. As I've told you before, I'm a big believer in putting in a lighter tailpiece. Out of the box, this guitar is fantastic. You really don't have to do anything to it. Yeah, I did have some fret issues on my guitar. Most of them probably are straight. And the fret issues that I had are really personal to me. A lot of people, they could have probably lived with it. But I wanted this to be as perfect as possible. I can tell you now that this is an absolutely fantastic guitar. It's perfect actually now with the work that I had done to it. I'm not planning on making any changes to it at all. I'm done with it and I'm happy with it. Okay, there may be one change, but that's a spoiler, so we'll get into that later. So let's do a side-by-side comparison very quickly on these two guitars. I will start out by saying that the construction of these two guitars are a little bit different, other than the odd cosmetic difference you can see, particularly with the horns of these guitars. The materials are quite different. Again, like I said, I suspect that this back on this after a little research is not what I thought was basswood. It actually is mahogany. However, it is a chambered mahogany, a very inexpensive mahogany, and I doubt that there's very much difference in the mahogany that was used in this more modern guitar. But this is non-chambered. This is a solid two-piece mahogany back on this. They both have a maple cap, again with a veneer on them. And I'll take a moment to talk about the polish job that I did on the Epiphone. For those of you who are curious about that little bit of the work that I did. I wasn't really thrilled with the way that the Epiphone looked with that matte finish. I think they a little bit missed the mark on that. As a matter of fact, when I first looked at this, when I opened the case, I thought it looked dry. The fretboard, the body itself, it looked actually unfinished, is what it looked like. However, one of the reasons that I wanted this guitar is because of that very fact. They did not spray these with the usual heavy poly finish that they put on their Les Paul standards. This is a very thin poly coat in order to achieve that matte look. So I like the neck on this guitar, that matte feel of the neck of this guitar. Not just the neck itself. We'll talk about that too, but the feel of this matte when you play is so much preferable, even above and beyond playing a Les Paul standard from Gibson that has that coat on it. By the way, Les Pauls do have a poly coat on it. It's a UV coat. It's a very thin one. For those out there who say that it's a nitro versus poly thing, just a bit of information for you on that. I like the way that this feels. So I kept the matte finish on the back, but I did polish up the front. I did have the front polished up. Because now that I've done that, I don't know if this can pick up. We're having not the greatest sunlight today, so I don't know how well that's picking up, but certainly you can see the gloss on that. It really made that maple veneer that they put on top of the maple cap on this guitar pop. It gives it a really 3D effect. Yes, I know it makes it look like every other Les Paul standard out there. However, I like this gloss finish. I think that it makes the guitar look just like a star. Also, this has a veneer on it as well, and this is a 44-year-old guitar. So I want you to see how I've given a little bit of a polish to this as well. You can see that these veneers really don't age. Pretty much well the way that it looks out of the factory 40 years ago, other than a few scratches it's had, is the way it looks now. It's going to be the same story with this guitar. And I just thought down the road that this looks a lot more attractive. 40 years from now, it will continue to look just like this. Now the back, because it doesn't have a poly or any kind of veneer on the back, that'll wear down. This one doesn't have a veneer on the back either, and it has certainly worn down. There's play wear on the back of that. So there will be play wear on this guitar. It will relic itself naturally over time. So that's my long-winded explanation as to why I did the polish job on this. It's a preference thing. Again, out of the box, they're great guitars. It's not something you have to do, but if you like the way it looks, you know that that's what it turns out when it's done professionally. It's just gorgeous. Okay, for the demo section on this program today, we are going to be using my somewhat modified Laney. As you know, the Laney, this Laney, the Club 12R, is based on the JCM 800 hot rod circuit. I've tamed it a little bit so you can get really fantastic cleans out of it. We are going to be running that into the Cab Zeus Mono. This is a fantastic IR pedal loaded with different speaker emulations in it, and I think that they're all fantastic. And then that'll be going directly into the recording device, so you'll get a very pristine sound, about as good as you're going to get for YouTube. We're only going to be doing really short clips, so you can hear the clarity of each string, so nothing long and drawn out. for those of you who like to leave at the 6-minute mark. And I'm not going to leave you hanging. Let's just start off by saying a lot of you came here to see what I thought about the rewire job on the Epiphone. And did it make a significant difference? Yes, it did. Sometimes when you hear these slight changes that people make on YouTube with their guitars, you can hear slight differences, but it's not really that significant. It doesn't jump out to you. Well, the changing of the Epiphone CTS pots to the lower CTS pots and caps and the rewire really brought out the Busberger 2 and 3 sounds to the level that I was getting out of my Les Paul Standard 60s, which have the same pickups. Now I will say this, it also started to show the limitations that I had on the Busberger 2 in terms of its clarity. We'll talk about that a little bit later after the sound clips. So enjoy it, and we'll talk at the end of this. So there you have it, the sound test for these two guitars. You heard the Super 70s and you heard the Gibson Busbergers. Did I say that right? Burstbuckers? Anyway. So you've seen the difference between the two of these in terms of the sound quality. Now, I'm not a big advocate of sound tests on YouTube. As you know, the audio gets compressed when they're processing videos when you upload them. So a lot of the subtle nuances you can't hear, but I think between these two there was enough of a difference where you could hear the difference between the Super 70s and these Busbergers. Burstbuckers. But it's just going to be one of those days. Anyway, so you can hear the difference between these two sets of pickups. Now, what do I think? I'll be frank with you, you'd be nuts if you took the pickups out of these stock. These Gibson BB2 and 3 pickups are absolutely fantastic sounding pickups. However, I'll tell you where my one small gripe that may lead to a change, maybe. Not necessarily, but I'm considering it. It comes down to the neck pickups on these guitars. The BB2 and the neck on this guitar, in my opinion, has a very mellow, modern, rounded tone to it. It doesn't have as sharp and clear of an articulation to the notes as this Super 70 neck pickup does. Again, the windings, analytical 8 and analytical 2 play a part in that clarity issue. You get that kind of clarity in the Super 70s and the Super 3s, the Dual 2s, the old DiMarzio pickups from the 70s because of their ceramic pickups. An analytical 8 pickup is going to sound very similar to that, but with a warmer tone to it. And I prefer the neck pickup, this Super 70 on this Greco, over the BB2 here in the neck on the Epiphone. However, that's where my dilemma occurs. When you go to the middle position on this guitar, that's when this guitar really shines, and when the beautiful tones between the BB2 and 3 and that middle position is just that quintessential creamy Epiphone, not Epiphone, but Gibson. Oh yeah, the same thing. That quintessential Les Paul sound, and really, I love it. And I'm afraid that if I swap out that BB2 in the neck, I'll lose that creaminess in the middle pickup. The BB3, I wouldn't touch it. I fell in love with the BB3 in my Les Paul Standard 60s because that also had the 2 and 3 in it, and I also had the same conclusions regarding the neck pickup as well. But the BB3, oh, I love it. I wouldn't touch it. As a matter of fact, it's become one of my new favorites in the bridge position. As you heard from the sound clips, it's very tight, got a tight bottom into it. Works really well with my greenback, my vintage greenback, because the compression you can get out of that with a tight bottom is just, it's the quintessential, rock tone that I like. And it's just a fantastic pickup. The bridge pickup on the Greco, the Super 70 and the bridge over there, I got to tell you, I found it to be a little woolly. I found it to be not as tight in the bottom, and that's the minus points of it. The plus points of it, it did have that quack to it that you get in a good vintage PAF. So between the two bridge pickups on these guitars, I'd have to say definitely the BB3 is the winner between the two. But if I did anything going forward, probably what I would do is take the neck pickup out of the Greco, the Super 70, and swap it with the BB2 over here in the Epiphone and see how that sounds. Because then if I can get that, still get that creaminess in the middle position, but I can get that clarity that I like, my personal choice, again, my taste, in the neck pickup, then that would be great. Anyway, it'd be fun. Tell me what you think in the comments section if that's something that you'd like to hear. Also tell me in the comments section what you thought about these two guitars, what you thought about the sound of that Super 70 versus the BB2 and 3. I'd love to hear from you. And until the next show, you guys take care. Bye-bye.